Good morning. I'm fighting a cold, so let me know if you can't hear me in the back. So, who said they wanted to talk about death and dying when they woke up this morning? It's a tough topic, but it's something that, each and everyone has to deal with. So, I appreciate your time this morning. There we go. So who are we? Who am I? My name's Brandi, as she explained. I've been with Compassionate Choices for 15 years now, and we are the oldest and largest nonprofit focused on choice and care at the end of life. But really it should be called life planning, because end of life is just as much a part of life as being born. And at Compassionate Choices, our goal is to have a society that affirms life but accepts the inevitability of death. And we empower people to be able to make informed decisions around end-of-life choices. And we do that in 3 different ways. One is through education, like we're doing now. We have resources and toolkits to help people make these decisions. We have a servicing component, and that's for people who are facing end of life, or if you're a physician, where you can call in our 800 number and get specific information about your situation. And then lastly, we work in advocacy, and that's to pass medical aid and dying laws. And I'll go into that more a little bit later. So as I said, we will all die. I found this quote from Morgan Freeman that I found to be powerful. He said, "People are so afraid of death that most will believe in anything over nothing. They will live their lives by that belief, fighting for, defending, and even killing over this belief, while the only thing we really know for sure is nothing." So this morning there was a study that came out, said humans have 100% mortality rate. You didn't know that. So it's not surprising. We all are going to have to deal with this. And why does it matter? This is my father. In 2011, his prostate cancer came out of remission. I've been working in this organization almost 8 years and hadn't had one conversation with my own father about his end-of-life wishes. Traveling all around the country, talking to people about getting their affairs in order, and I never even talked to my own dad. So when his cancer came back very aggressive, he became unresponsive. He was remarried. I'm pretty sure Papa Was a Rolling Stone was written about my daddy, because he has a bunch of kids. His new wife was younger than 2 of my siblings. She made all of his decisions. She thought she knew what he wanted. We thought we knew what he wanted, but the facts were none of us knew what he wanted. So we spent his last days fighting. We had to separate our visitations. It was really ugly. We didn't get to honor him during his final days because we were too busy fighting. And so to me, it was eye-opening. I work in this industry, I'm informed, and I'm not even talking to my family about it. So how must that be impacting the rest of our community? When I say our, I mean the blacks and browns. Because as you all know, we don't like to talk about it. We don't like to get our affairs in order until it's too late, till we're in that emergency room or in that intensive care. And then at that point, your stress levels are so high because you're dealing with the loss of your loved ones on top of not even knowing what it is that they want and if you are really honoring them the way they would want you to. So it's not even just in our personal lives, right? How many James Brown fans do we have in here? Any? Yeah. In 2006, when he passed away, he had 7 kids and 4 wives. His body stayed on ice for 8 weeks, and it was moved 14 times before he was finally buried, just because there was so much dissension amongst his family. Same thing with B.B. King. He passed away in 2016. He had 15 kids, and each one had a different mom, and he had 2 ex-wives. So that's 32 people who potentially had an opinion on what he wanted. And again, they spent years fighting over his estate and his final burial spot as well. Prince didn't have his affairs in order. John Singleton didn't have his affairs in order. We tend to think of this as like an older person issue, but Bobbi Kristina was 22 years old when she fell into her coma from January to July, 6 months. And her dad had to make that decision for her, not knowing if she would want it, what it is she actually wanted. I think most recently Aretha Franklin passed away. Her estate was worth $80 million. She had no power of attorney, no living will, no advance directives. So again, they're going to be caught up in probate, fighting. She's got a special needs child. And so again, it's not to talk about their legacy, but to show if our greatest and people with the most resources aren't even getting their affairs in order, it should be a wake-up call to us all. Let's see here. Shit happens. This is my cousin, Michael Lynn. Sometimes I can make it through this, sometimes I can't. She's 34, went to sleep on Saturday. Her kids couldn't wake her up on Sunday. She had 2 heart attacks in her sleep. Out of nowhere, right? Went out with her sister, hanging out for the weekend, and again, that was her last night. So I just say that to say, again, you never know, what we're going to face. This is not a younger person, not an older person. It's all of our issue. So the Duke Divinity School found that 50% of African Americans haven't talked to a family member about their end of life, and 20% haven't talked to anyone at all. And so, as with healthcare, there are end of life disparities as there are healthcare disparities. And the only way that we can really change that is by taking charge of these issues. This is one of the disparities that we actually have some control over, because all it takes is conversation and a couple of forums to really let your people know what it is that you want. So the contemporary end-of-life experience, most people want to die at home, surrounded by their loved ones. Most people would choose improved quality of life over prolonged medical procedures that may reduce the quality of your life, right? Technology is now, we could probably stay alive for the next 100 years if you wanted to, but what is the quality of your life while you're in that situation? The reality is 1 in 3 die in ICU, and 1 in 3 often, particularly in the African American community, we get very, very aggressive treatment at the end of life when it's not even going to help our situation and actually will reduce our quality of life. But we don't know that because we haven't gotten the education to understand what each one of these treatment options are and how they will affect us. So, what can we do about it? Repeat after me. Educate, empower, and advocate. So what we want you to do is educate yourself about what these options are so that you can then be empowered to make these decisions and advocate for yourself and your family. And to do that, we have Compassionate Choices has come up with what we call an advanced planning guide and a toolkit. We actually have copies of it back there. I'll show you what it looks like here. And inside of it, it's 38 pages, and it goes step by step about how to put your affairs in order. So what matters to you most? Putting priorities on paper, advance directives. How many people are familiar with advance directives? How many people have completed an advance directive? So advance directive is your opportunity to write down what your wishes are in case there becomes a time that you can't speak for yourself. And it also allows you to identify a power of attorney, and that person will make those decisions for you. Oftentimes we think it should be our spouse or maybe our oldest child, but it really needs to be that person who's going to fight for you and what it is that you want. And you have to be really, really cognizant about who that person is. We have what we call a diagnosis decoder. That's specifically for someone who's facing a particular illness. You can go to our website, put in the illness that you're facing, and then it'll print out questions for you to take to your physician. Right? We don't have much time when we get into that doctor's office, and oftentimes we don't even get all the questions we need answered because you only have a couple minutes with them. So this is a tool that really helps you plan your meeting, your time with your physician. And I'm going to have us do a little exercise. Pass these out. This way, yeah. So again, this toolkit we have is not a legal document, but it goes with your advanced directive so we can help guide those that are making decisions for you and for yourself. So right now, Tony's passing out a values worksheet and a sectarian healthcare directive. I'm going to read from this sectarian healthcare directive. It says, I understand that circumstances beyond my control may cause me to be admitted in a healthcare institution whose religious or moral policy conflicts with instructions in my advanced directives. And what does that mean? A lot of times, depending on where you live, you may end up in a Catholic facility, for example. And they are run by what they call ERDs, ethical and religious directives. So if you, for example, don't want a feeding tube, or a lot of times in reproductive health, it doesn't matter what you want, you have to go by the rules of that particular facility. So this is a document that you can fill out and take with you to your facility to make sure that they'll honor your wishes. It continues to say, my consent to admission shall not constitute implied consent to procedures or courses of treatment mandated by ethical, religious, or other policies of the institution if those procedures or courses conflict with my advanced directives. So it says, my preferred choice of medical facility which I'd like to be admitted or transferred to are, and it gives you an opportunity to write those down in case you're in an area where you know you could be restricted based on the facility you're in. So if, let's see, maybe each row can get together and go through this values worksheet. It goes through about 10 different, I would say, values. And you can rate them on a scale of 0 to 4 about what's most important to you. So maybe that's being free of physical limitations or avoiding expensive care. There are some things about preserving the quality of life. So I just want to have you break up for about 5 minutes, just in your row, and go through each one of these and just sort of talk about what they mean to you based on your value system. And then I'll come back about 5 minutes. Any questions? Does it make sense? have 3 more minutes. Okay, let's come back together. So I'm not sure if you had enough time to go through them all, but I'm just going to quickly read through them. Letting nature take its course, preserving quality of life, staying true to spiritual beliefs or traditions, living long as possible regardless of quality of life, being independent. Some people say when I can't go to the bathroom for myself anymore, I don't, that's it for me. Everybody has their own threshold of what is important to them. Being comfortable and as pain-free as possible. Some people see value in pain. Other people don't want to suffer and have pain. Leaving good memories for my friends and family. Making a contribution to medical research or teaching. Being able to relate to friends and family. Being free from physical limitations. Being mentally alert and competent. Being able to leave money to friends, family, or charity. Dying more quickly rather than lingering, and avoiding expensive care. So again, these are just guiding people. So you may be faced with maybe dialysis, for example, and then your loved one will be able to say, well, I know on this, it's very important to her that she stays independent. So this might not be the best treatment for her because afterwards, whatever it may be. So again, these are just guidance. They're not legal documents, but they go with your advanced directives to really help. So what are some of the things that you guys talked about? Yes.
So we were discussing the balance between the one where you're wanting to be as pain-free as possible and comfortable, and then being mentally alert and confident. Like maybe you don't want to be in pain, but you also want to be alert. Pain medication can sometimes take some of that away.
What else? Looked like a good conversation. Share?
Well, about the one about being able to leave money to family friends. How much money do we actually have? If you don't have a whole lot of money, it's like, okay, well, if I had money left over, I'm sure I want to go to family and friends and support have that set up. But, there might, I don't know, for someone who is wealthy, that might be very important to get that figured out. Like with Frank, for example. For me, I'm not going to have it.
But that's what you think, right? But once you pass away, the smallest things become so important. It'll be that lanyard you have on right now that your family's fighting over. So it's just like, at that point, things get really ugly when people pass away. They can, anyway. It brings out the worst sometimes. So it may seem like you don't have resources, but they will fight over whatever it is you have. Yeah.
Well, how I read that is, like, let's say if I had some type of medical issue that to do the treatment is just going to wipe out all of my savings and all of that, that would be a threshold to me. If I can take this money and the guarantee is like I'm not going to get better, it just maybe improve my quality of life for a little bit, I'd rather my family get that money and not incorporate the bill. I would say no. I don't want that. I don't want you to spend all this money on me. I'm gonna kick the bucket anyway. So y'all take that money and go do something. You know, I would not. That would definitely be a threshold for me. I don't want to leave it. I don't want nobody paying no bill for some dead person. So yeah, that's how I take that.
What else? This side of the room? Yeah.
I just don't want my body in a casket. You just do whatever you want to do, but either go to science or cremation, but I don't want anyone spending money on a box, a wooden box.
You gotta write it down, right? Or people don't know what it is that you want. Anything else? Yeah.
I was trying to figure out the preserving quality of life question. Is that saying that if in the event something goes wrong, are you trying to live the best life in that particular time? Is that what it's trying to say?
Right. And quality of life, like I was saying, it means something different to everybody. What quality of life is to you. So yeah, it is when you're facing some sort of serious illness or a point where you can't speak for yourself, what quality of life means for you.
And also the first that nature take this course. I have a brother that's in the home, right? So I was coming from that perspective, but
Yeah.
you were coming from.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out that was saying if something were to go wrong, if you're refusing medical interventions, that prevents.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, letting nature take its course, not being proactive in fighting whatever it is that you're facing. Like my mom said, as long as there's electricity. When she says that now, I don't know if she really knows what she's saying, but she does not want, she wants all the aggressive treatment. And so that's what she wants. And as her child, I want to be able to honor that for her. Anything else? Any other thoughts come to mind? Yeah.
Just addressing the previous comment in reference to the money in reference to your family after you're dead. I think that another thing that we neglect as like around people is life insurance, and then you have to have a fish fry or something else to avoid loss. I think that's something that's important too.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of savings, but I do have life insurance, and it's a pretty good amount of money. I just want my family fighting over it if I do go. So I've already established who's going to and who's going to divide that.
How many of us have given to a GoFundMe account so somebody can bury their loved ones? Like, come on, we can do better. We really can. And the earlier you start, the better.
Have you read Atul Gawande's, I think it's called Being Mortal? I think that would help some people who want aggressive treatment to understand what that exactly means. Like, you could be tortured. I read a nurse who said that she was when she retired, she was glad that she could stop torturing old people. So
Yeah, I mean, when people say they don't want to be resuscitated, there's so much pressure put, you're a frail, older person, oftentimes you're a physician in the room, luckily, he may be able to talk even more about it, but like you said, it can be torturous. One of our nurses talks about pacemakers and how when you're older and you're trying to actually transition on, it'll shock you back into life. And so it's just like things that you have to think about when you're getting these different treatment options. Anything else? Yeah.
I was thinking about the question about the body and what you made about medical research or teaching. And I think that's kind of hard because on one hand, I really want to do that. On the other hand, I also think about when I'm gone, even though I know that, my body doesn't matter a whole lot, it still would matter referring to some of their wishes for perhaps my body, for their comfort.
That's interesting. Anything else? So I just want to go into some more of the resources we have. Dementia affects everyone, particularly Black and brown communities. We tend to get every disease, every disparity at higher rates for some reason. So about 2 weeks ago, we have launched what we call the Dementia Values and Priority Tools. And again, it's similar to our diagnosis decoder, where you can, there's 2 different options to start you through the process. So it says, I've been diagnosed with dementia, I'm still of sound mind and have the ability and mental capabilities to make my own healthcare decisions, or I have not been diagnosed, but I want to make sure that my wishes are known. So it gives you 2 different tracks depending on where you are in your situation, and again, it helps you identify your personal values for your care and wishes so that you stay in control. And every journey is different. So whether you want all available treatments or you want none at all, we just want to make sure that you have that written down while you still can. Another tool we have is My Particular Wishes. And this goes specifically into treatment options. And you can denote whether you want this or you don't, or for a trial period. So we've got, like, it's really tiny on here, electric shock if my heart stops beating. Yes, no, or trial period. Artificial ventilation. So you may say, I'll try that for 7 months, and if that doesn't help, then let me go, or whatever it is the situation may be. So this goes specifically into like blood and plasma transfusions and real specific artificial nutrition, things of that sort. Values worksheet, that's what we just went through together. We have this hospital visitation form. This is particularly pertinent to LGBTQ community. Oftentimes, they're in untraditional families, and this is an opportunity for you to write down who you want to be able to visit you in case it's someone who's not a family member that allows that restriction. I wish my dad would have had that, because when we were going through our stuff, his wife was even controlling who could visit him. Again, we were in Louisiana, not to spare the South, but not even the hospital administration knew what the role of the power of attorney is. That wasn't her role. She shouldn't have been deciding that. It was supposed to be about his medical issues. But again, it was so much confusion and so much stress and so much anger that we ended up having to separate our visitations and all these other things. But I think if I would have helped him to be empowered, I feel like I did him a great injustice by not getting that information from him. And this is just another tool in case you are in an untraditional family. So, it's one thing to talk about getting your affairs in order, but you also have to understand what,
I think about that, the past one that you said, the visitation form, in terms of like atheists, because as well as queer, being a queer person. I think in terms of atheism, it's like some, again, that whatever hospital you're in and that religion, they will send a priest out and argue. And it's like, I don't need you to give me rights and all that kind of whatever. So I think about that in terms of that. I probably had a whole list of people wrong.
So right, you can have the opposite, and not who you do want, but who you don't want at your bedside. That's a great point. Thank you. So let's go through what some of these end-of-life options are. Pursuing life-sustaining treatment, right? Those are the things that are going to help you live longer. You can refuse or discontinue life-sustaining treatment, which is clearly the opposite of that. Hospice care. Of those enrolled in hospice, 8% are African American. 8%. I think it's an educational gap, because oftentimes we think hospice is where you go to give up, right? It's where you drop grandma off a couple days before she dies. and you think it's somewhere you have to go. Hospice care can happen right in your home. Many insurance, Medicare, Medicaid covers all of that as an option. It's complete care. It's more than just your health. They have, all kind of resources for you. And the earlier that you access hospice care, the better it is for you. You don't want to wait till you're at the end of your journey. You want to right away, as soon as you know you're facing a terminal illness or you've been given that 6-month prognosis, that's when you should learn about hospice care. Voluntary stopping eating and drinking is called VSED. It sounds scary to us right now, but when you are sick or at the end of your life, food is the last thing on your mind. And it's legal in all 50 states, so it's an option for people who want to take a more active role. There's palliative sedation. That's basically when you are medicated to the point that you sleep through your suffering or your pain. And then there's medical aid in dying. How many people are familiar with medical aid in dying? Anyone? A couple people? And this is Brittany Minard. In 2014, she had a brain tumor. She's a California resident. This is before medical aid in dying was authorized in California. At that time, it was only available in Oregon and Washington. So in 2014, this was her. She was newly married and found out she had this brain tumor. So she moved from California to Oregon so she could access the law. In her final days, she dedicated to this mission to make sure that no one else would have to be relocated to have access to medical aid in dying. So after she shared her story, we went from working in 5 states to 25 states that year. 25 states introduced laws to allow terminal patients to have this option. If you can see how she looked, not even just a few months after coming to Compassionate Choices for Our Help, you can see her brain tumor was starting to affect her physically as well. And this is right before she took the medication. So we know medical aid in dying doesn't fit everyone's value system, but for those it does, we feel like it should be an option for them. So it's basically for a terminal adult, that's someone who's been diagnosed with a terminal illness, who's been given a prognosis of 6 months or less, the same as the criteria for hospice. It allows you to ask your physician for medication to bring about a peaceful death if you so choose. You have to be mentally competent as verified by 2 physicians, as well as your terminal diagnosis has to be confirmed by 2 physicians. If either one of those physicians feels like you cannot make those decisions, then a mental health professional is brought into the process. So once you make the request from your physician, they then have to tell you all the options that are available to you in addition to medical aid in dying. And then there's a written request, 2 written requests actually, and a 15-day waiting period. Most people don't even make it through the process because it is so intense. But when the laws were set up, they wanted to make sure that no one was being coerced into this and that this is a decision that they really wanted to make. So there's safeguards throughout the process to make sure that it's patient-driven. So right now, medical aid in dying is available in 10 jurisdictions. That's Oregon, which was the first. They've had it for almost 20 years now. And it's in Montana, Washington, California, Colorado, New Jersey, Maine, Hawaii, Vermont, and DC. So it's interesting, when these laws first started coming about, they were in states that were majority Caucasian, right? Washington, Montana, Oregon. So we didn't really know how it was going to impact the greater community. And a lot of times people were saying that, they brought these laws to get rid of Black and brown people or disabled people. But in the 40 years of combined history of all the states, there's never been one case of misuse or abuse of the law. Most people get the medication and never use it, but it gives them that peace of mind knowing that if it gets to that point, that they have a way to relieve whatever their idea of suffering is. So I just want to go through some of the facts. Medical aid in dying is not assisted suicide, and it's not euthanasia. This is completely patient-driven. You have to be able to self-administer the medication. It's not put in like a needle form, or it's a pill, and it's something that you have to take on your own. No one can do that for you. Euthanasia is what we do to our pets. It takes a third party, a physician or a veterinarian. This is nothing like that. Again, it's completely controlled by the individual. Even the American Psychological Association talks about the difference between a person who's suicidal and a terminal person who chooses this option. People who are dying, they don't have the choice anymore, right? This illness is taking away their options, or whereas a person who commits suicide has that choice to live, and they take that choice away. So I just want to make the distinction between the two. As I explained, there's never been any misuse of this law, and it really has helped palliative care in all the states where it's passed, because once you make that request, you learn about all your options that are available, right? So in California in particular, the medical community has really talked about how it's changed palliative care and end-of-life care, because it's opened up the conversation so much more. This is Dr. Omega Silva. She was the first woman president of Howard University Medical Alumni Association, and she's the former president of the American Women Medical Association. And she's got 3 different cancers right now. She's one of our advocates who travels around talking about why this option is so important. And she said, "I love my work and my life, but if the time comes that I have no hope for a cure and my suffering becomes unbearable, I want physician medical aid in dying as an option for myself and for the sake of my loved ones." So I thank you guys for your time. This is a really tough topic. And just before I go, I'm going to have you turn to the person next to you and tell them that I'm talking about death. Repeat after me. Won't kill you. Thank you, guys.
Have you run into, when you talk to mostly black folks, have you run into like the religious questions? And then like some folks I know in my family, there are folks who are like, oh, you don't want to talk about death or bring death on. That sort of, what do you call that? Yeah, and all that kind of like, I can't think of words anyway. But yeah, the folks who have those sort of like superstitions. Yeah, and like, oh, you talk about it, you won't bring it on, or
That's the
don't
most
have one
common
foot
thing.
in the ground, and some of the same.
That's the most common thing I hear from particularly our community. Talking about it is going to bring it up. It's going to make it fester. I had one lady say, "Brandi's trying to kill," she stood up in the back of the room, "Brandi's trying to kill us all." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm just trying to prepare you for something that we're all going to have to face." And definitely the religious issue comes up a lot because people think God is in control of life and death, right? And so taking that power into your own hands can be considered disrespectful depending on your belief system. So we run into that a lot in our community, which, but we're not monolithic, right? So I wanted to make sure that this group got this information because we're so assuming people of color are so religious, right? We're Bible thumpers and all these things. So I wanted to make sure that the Black non-believers were empowered with this information as well, because everyone is not a believer. So yeah, definitely run into that a lot.
Are there, other than your organization, are there others sort of resources for family members kind of coping with these decisions, right? Like, I'm over here talking to my mom about this. I'm like, okay, this is what you want. I just have to accept this, but I'm already like, how am I going to deal with it? So I'm wondering, even if it's therapy or whatever, I guess I don't really know what I'm asking for. But like resources for the loved ones, like the ones who
Yeah, I mean, it's really the most loving thing you can do is to have these conversations.
Sure.
So as stressful as it seems and sounds, you feel so much better afterwards because you know. So I suggest that people start early, like before a time of crisis. Family reunions, family dinners, where everyone's sitting around having a good time. Talk about it then. And it is sort of therapeutic in that way because you know that you'll be honoring your loved one.
I heard there is grief beyond belief. Grief beyond belief.
Yeah.
Because a lot of places are dominated. Like Christianity has this trademark on death. Like hospices, a lot of times are religious hospices, and do you want your last 6 months of your life being preached to? And but I don't know, maybe there's some that are kind enough to leave me alone about that. But also one thing that I was struck by reading that book is sometimes if you don't go for aggressive therapy, studies have shown you might live longer. Because like you're already sick and you go in with surgery and so you're already compromised and you come out in worse condition than you were before. So like on average, people who just address their pain and suffering, and if they're terminal, so a lot of times live longer than aggressive therapy or surgery.
I was reading something maybe a month ago or something that was actually talking about like their doulas for having
Death doulas.
Yeah, their death doula. I was like, that sounds really awesome to me.
It is.
And to that will, but isn't that sort of what hospice does? Because I know hospice looks at the whole. To me, if I knew I was, trying to enter hospice, I would do it, but I would do it mainly for my family to help them to, the people that I love, to help them deal with it. I think that's just, to me, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
And I became really interested. It's like, wow, I'd like to get involved with that.
Similar to a birth doula, they're very much focused on the individual, right? So whereas hospice care, they have several patients to deal with, this death doula is specifically focused on you and your family and your process.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I have a hospital resource that's here in Chicago. It's called the Care Plan, and it's specifically about end-of-life planning for LGBT elders. I've been to one of the workshops. They do great services. So if you're looking for somebody, if you're in Chicago, looking for somebody to sit down with you and help you walk through it, they're a great